Hi guys, welcome back to Spelling and Word Study. My name is Mrs. Rhoades and I'm here to get you started on Unit 33, PH words. Please take a second to gather your materials. You will need your green book open to page 203. You'll also need some colorful pens, markers, or crayons. Remember, whatever I mark on my board, you should be marking on your page. Please save room for a key as well. You'll notice that I've already gone ahead and broken our words into syllables using these vertical lines, and I've used check marks to signify the stressed syllable. That's a part of the word that we say a little bit louder and stronger than the rest. All right, so I am confident that you guys are already familiar with this PH digraph. You already know that when P and H come together, they make a whole new sound, which is F. You probably learned about this back in second grade. You notice that PH can show up at the beginning of a word like phone or at the end of a word like graph. Well, this week we are taking that PH digraph to a whole new level. You'll notice all of our words this week have 3, 4, maybe 5 syllables. They all come from Greek. There are some very common roots that you're going to see again and again on this list. If you memorize those roots or start to get curious about them, that will help you spell the words and also understand their meanings. Let's start by reading our list, and then we'll talk more about those roots in a minute. Please repeat after me. Amphibian, apostrophe, biography, catastrophe, decipher, esophagus, geography, metamorphosis, peripheral, pharmacist, phenomenon, philosophy, photocopy, photographer, photosynthesis, physical, sophisticated, sophomore, triumphant, xylophone. Lots of great big words this week. All right, like I said, all of these words originate in Greek. They all come from the Greek language. Of course, they've been changed and altered over the years. But let's start by looking at a very common Greek root that you should already know, and that is photo. So we see it right here in the word photocopy. Now, you know what it means to photocopy something, right? You bring it to the machine and you press the button and then it spits out 5, 10, 100 more copies of whatever sheet. But you've probably noticed if you lift the lid up too soon, you see that light going across it. So a photocopier, a photocopy machine, uses light to make copies. So that photo has something to do with light. Notice photocopy you can use as a noun if you're talking about a photocopy, or a verb if you're talking about to photocopy. Now we see it again in the word photographer. A photographer is a person that takes pictures. They use a camera or a phone to make photographs, right? And the shortened form of that is photo. Notice, by the way, when we change photo to photographer, we change the pronunciation of that O. Now, when we take photos, we're using light to make those pictures. So that's where that comes from as well. Photosynthesis is a word you might have learned about in your science class. That's another noun. Photosynthesis is the process that plants use to make food. They combine sunlight and water and nutrients from the soil to make food. That's why leaves are green, because they also use chlorophyll, which is something that's in the leaves, to make their own food. Okay, so photosynthesis is the process of making food. And it's a process that only plants can use. Humans, animals can't do that. And they make food using light. Okay, so anything I put in a green box has that photo root, which comes from Greek, and that has to do with light. Okay, so keep that in mind. Another common chunk that you should know is graph. Now, you learned about this back in 5th grade, I think week 36. We learned about words like paragraph, autograph, calligraphy. All of those have something to do with writing. So when you sign something with your autograph, you are writing your name. So we see it here in the word biography. There's our chunk right there. A biography is a piece of writing about a famous person. It's a noun. So writing about a person. I guess it doesn't have to be a famous person, okay? But it's a piece of nonfiction. It's supposed to be true, and it's just telling about a person's life. So there's graph there. We also see it right here in geography. There's another noun. Notice, by the way, that graph pronunciation is changing. It's not biography, it's biography. Same thing with geography. I told you that graph means write, but it also has to do with describing. So when we talk about geography, it's a description of Earth. It tells where the mountains are, where the countries are, where the rivers are. So geography is actually the study, or the description, I guess, of places on Earth. So if you take a geography class, you're going to learn about maybe different landforms, different bodies of water, and different countries and borders around the world. Okay, so biography, geography, photographer. Look at that word has 2 Greek roots in it, because a photographer uses light to describe or create a description of what they see. Okay, so over here we have our graph root, and anywhere we see that, it's going to have something to do with writing or describing. Whether you're describing the scene in front of you or you're describing the earth. Geo is earth, right? Okay, a third root that I want you to know is soph. Now we see it right here in, oh, I already used green. How about blue? We see it right here in philosophy. That's another noun. When you get to college, if you go to college, you might take a philosophy class. People take philosophy classes because they're searching for wisdom. They want to understand what makes people tick, or why we're here, or how to be happy. Those are all philosophical questions. So when we talk about philosophy, we talk about a search for wisdom. Now, some people have their own philosophies. Your parents might have a parenting philosophy, a way that they believe they should be raising their children, right? You might have a philosophy about life, or a philosophy on how to stay healthy. These are wise words that you have accepted, that you're trying to live by. So when you see that soft chunk, think about wisdom and being wise. We see it again here in the word sophisticated. Sophisticated is an adjective. If somebody's sophisticated, it almost means like they're wise, in the sense that they figured out how the world works. So they're very mature, they have good taste. So mature, wise, and having good taste. Okay, so you know, an adult who has sophisticated taste buds might prefer a filet mignon instead of a McDonald's cheeseburger, right? They have more sophisticated taste. They've grown wise about what's better quality or better taste in the world. And then we also see it in sophomore. By the way, the word sophomore has 3 syllables, but that O syllable gets swallowed up. We don't pronounce it sophomore, but when you're spelling it, I want you to say it that way in your head, sophomore, so you remember that O. A sophomore is a noun. It's what we call a 10th grader, someone who's in their 2nd year of high school. Now, why do we go to high school? So that we can gain wisdom. So a sophomore is on their way to getting wise. Okay, so over here, blue box equals soph, S-O-P-H, and that means wise. When you get to page 206, you're going to have more practice with the root photo, which means light, and the root soph, which means wisdom. You're going to take all of these words and match them to their meanings below. Okay, so those are the 3 roots, the most important roots this week: photo, graph, and soph. But there are some others as well. So let's look at the rest of our list, starting with the word amphibian. An amphibian is a type of animal, right? We have mammals, fish, birds, reptiles, amphibians. Those are the 5 types of vertebrates, animals with backbones. Now, this amphi chunk right here means both, and bi means life. So if you think of an amphibian is a type of animal that lives both types of life, meaning it spends part of its life on land and part of its life on water. Think about frogs, toads, and salamanders, okay? They all start their life in the water. A frog starts as a tadpole, and then over time, it becomes a land animal. So amphibian is an animal that lives in water and on land, okay? Bi means life. If we go back to biography, there's life again, right? Your biography, if somebody writes your biography, they're writing your life story. Okay, apostrophe. That's a noun. For my younger students, I call it a floating comma or a bookmark. It saves a space for a missing letter. So apostrophe looks like this. So in a word like it's a bookmark that's saving a place for the I. When we take it and is and put them together, that I gets turned away. This right here, strophe, or apostrophe, I guess, has something to do with turning away. So an apostrophe turns away that I, says, get lost, you're not needed right now. Look at catastrophe. That's another one of those rare words that has that same S-T-R-O-P-H-E chunk. A catastrophe is a disaster, right? A sudden disaster. It's a noun. And remember I said strophe or strophe, however you pronounce it, has something to do with turning. So a catastrophe is a complete turnaround, right? Your life is going well, and then your house burns down. That's a catastrophe. What was going in a great direction is now turned and going in a bad direction. So catastrophe, a sudden disaster. To decipher, that's a verb. When you cipher something, you put it in code. So when you decipher or decipher something, you crack the code. You solve the mystery. You figure out what the words mean. Esophagus, that's a noun. That's this tube that stretches from your mouth to your stomach. So I'm just going to write food tube. And you might have noticed that this word has that SOPH in there, that soph, but that actually has nothing to do with wisdom because the Greek root here is PHAG, which has something to do with eating. So your esophagus helps you eat food. A metamorphosis, that's another noun. Meta means change, and morph means shape or form. So a metamorphosis is a complete change. Sorry, I'm smushing everything in here. There are certain animals that complete a metamorphosis in their life. Think about butterflies. They start out as an egg, then they change to a caterpillar, then a chrysalis, and then they're a fully developed butterfly. That's going from caterpillar to butterfly is a complete metamorphosis. Another animal that experiences metamorphosis would be a frog. Starts off as a tadpole living in the water and transforms into a frog that hops on land. Peripheral, that's a describing word. You've seen this prefix before. Peri means around. Think about a periscope, right? That comes out of a submarine and allows you to look around to see what's going on above the sea. So peripheral means around the edges. It has to do with our vision. So around the edge of sight, I'm going to say. So you can do this trick if you hold out your fingers, you can see them clearly, right? And if you keep moving them, at some point you can still see them out of your peripheral vision. So even though I'm looking ahead, around the edges, I can see my two fingers. Now at some point I can't see them anymore, but right here, they're still in my peripheral vision. Okay, what else do we have? Pharmacist. That's a person who works in a pharmacy or a drugstore. Anytime you see pharm, it's going to have something to do with drugs or medicine. So a pharmacy is a place you go to get medicine. A pharmaceutical company is a company that makes medicine. A phenomenon, that is an observable fact or event, something you can see with your own eyes. Something you can witness. Something you can witness and see with your own eyes. So some examples of a natural phenomenon would be a beautiful sunrise, a tornado, a blizzard, okay? There are other, by the way, the plural form is not phenomenons, it's phenomena. There are other phenomena that are not natural. So for instance, this whole habit we've developed of Googling everything, that's a phenomenon that wasn't even around 10, 15 years ago. That's a relatively new phenomenon. Carrying a phone around with you everywhere is a new phenomenon in the last several years, okay? So it's something that we can all witness and see. We talked about philosophy, photocopy. Okay, physical can be a noun if we're talking about a physical, like you have to go to the doctor to get your annual checkup, your physical. It can also be used as an adjective if we're talking about things like a physical exam or physical exercise. It has to do with of, being of the body. So when you go to PE, you go to physical education, your teacher is showing you how to take good care of your body by eating well, exercising, drinking water, all of that. Triumphant is another adjective. A triumph is a success. It's a win. So if you're feeling triumphant, it means you're feeling successful. So if you've been saving up for a whole year because you really, really want to get a pet cat, let's say, and you finally reached your goal and dad says, all right, let's go to the store and pick out your cat, you are probably feeling triumphant, like you finally met that goal. And then the last word is xylophone. That's a type of instrument. It's a percussion instrument, which means we bang on it to make noise. There's a picture of his, not to make noise, to make music, I'm sorry. There's a picture of it right here. So you stand behind it and you use these mallets to bang on the different pieces of metal, and that makes musical notes, okay? So that's a xylophone. And that's all I have for you today. So lots of great vocabulary, some tricky spellings, but if you learn those Greek chunks like photo and graph and SOPH, I think that's going to help you a lot. Good luck, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.